Chapter 2941. More than half of the spiritual energy absorbed by the mystic energy guiding talisman matrix from a radius of several hundred kilometers was drawn into the defensive array surrounding the 13 peaks of Rosy Cloud's Peak. The remaining spiritual energy was truly unable to be absorbed by the 13 peaks, and it looked like it was about to slowly dissipate again. However, Sir Jojo adhered to the principle of frugality and called the sapling Chochio back. He had it absorb the remaining spiritual energy to replenish the spiritual energy consumed by the paradise. Young Shirong excitedly strolled around the mountain peak. She held Auber's small hand and repeatedly nodded as she said, "Jojo, you really have a good eye for choosing a location. Judging from the spiritual energy gathered around this place, it must be a naturally formed spirit domain." Auber pursed his small lips. In reality, this spirit domain might not have had so much spiritual energy inside before. It was mainly due to the two mystic energy guiding talisman matrices and the defensive array surrounding it that all the spiritual energy was locked inside. An endless stream of spiritual energy was absorbed by the mystic energy guiding talisman matrix, and very little spiritual energy dissipated. As a result, the spiritual energy density of this entire mountain peak could be said to have reached its peak. Auber released Jiang Qi, Yu Gue, and the other senior sisters from the paradise. Chen Qi, who was originally calmly drinking wine on the side, abruptly spat out a mouthful of wine. F***ck, he never knew that his second-generation sect master had so many people by her side. These people couldn't have all been stored inside her storage talisman, right? Young Shirong already had some understanding of seniors Chen Qi and Lu Zheng in Paradise Planet. She walked up and cupped her hands in greeting. "Seniors, Young Shirong from the Holy Water Sect greets you." When Chen Qi and Lu Zheng heard the little stoic sect master call her Aunt Master, they knew she was naturally close to them. Hence, they didn't put on airs and cupped their hands with a smile, greeting Young Shirong. Sparks of curiosity still danced in Chen Qi's eyes. "The second-generation sect master stored all of you inside the storage talisman? Isn't it stuffy to be cooped up inside the storage talisman all day long?" Young Shirong thought about it but still said, I'll let Jojo tell you personally." When Chen Qi and Lu Zheng heard this, they knew better than to ask any further. Auber walked up to them and pointed at the senior sisters who were excitedly planning the mountain peaks and how to build them. He said to Young Shirong, second Aunt Master, "The Holy Water Sect shouldn't lack any of the 3 peaks. Let's just establish 3 peaks, okay? However, if senior sisters wish to study together, they can also gather on another mountain peak." Young Shirong naturally nodded in agreement. "The 4th peak over there will be named Learning Peak. If everyone wants to cultivate together, we can go there." Auber nodded. "Let's call the 5th mountain the Sky Peak. It's time for our Maple Pavilion to return." Young Shirong had already visited the Maple Pavilion on Paradise Planet. When she heard this, she looked at the child with emotion. The Maple Pavilion had a total of 7 floors, and there were many treasures inside. Jojo had owned the Maple Pavilion for so long, but he had not touched a single thing. This child's mind was too pure. Auber had her own set of principles for handling matters. No one should think of coveting what belonged to her. She wouldn't take more than what didn't belong to her. Since the items inside the sect were passed down from the Holy Water Sect, they naturally belonged to everyone. Now that the Holy Water Sect had reopened its doors to accept disciples, the Maple Pavilion naturally had to return them to their rightful owners. Young Shirong pushed back the pine bamboo jade bracelet on her wrist. "This key is still with you." Chapter 2942. This is what your master left for you, so it's yours. Young Shirong pats her little hand. In the future, if a disciple performs well in the sect, we'll follow the rules and let her go to Maple Pavilion to choose spiritual techniques, spiritual weapons, and so on. Auber thinks for a moment and says, "There are quite a few profound-level mystic weapons inside. It's time to change them." She takes out a storage talisman and hands it to Young Shirong. "Second Uncle Master, when are you going to tidy it up? This is half of the compensation given by the Mu family's first branch. I didn't look through the mess. What spirit stones, spiritual techniques, spiritual weapons, and medicinal herbs. I reckon they're not of the best quality. Just make do with it for now. Young Shirong twitches her mouth. She doesn't know if Jojo feels guilty when he says this. She feels that the Mu family's first branch must be bleeding from the bottom of their hearts when they handed over the compensation. Little junior sister, little junior sister. Fong Su, the little cannon, runs over excitedly and points to the back of the mountain. There are several rows of caves on the back of the mountain. The spiritual energy inside is extremely dense. Do you want to go take a look? These fellows ran one round all over the mountains and plains, and actually already found several good cultivation places. Seeing that they are in high spirits, Abba nods and follows them. Sure enough, there are a series of small caves formed naturally on the back of the mountain. It's just big enough for one person to sit cross-legged and cultivate. Emo Lien exclaims and steps forward to look up. She can't help but mutter to herself, this place can actually form a natural cultivation place. Hey, it's really not bad. Look, there's a wind gap here. The wind comes from there and naturally turns a corner, bringing with it surging spiritual energy. As it blows for a long time, the spiritual energy keeps seeping in and actually formed many small caves. Chen Qi points in the direction of the back of the mountain. The passage they just passed by is relatively narrow, like a slender gourd. When they turn around, they immediately see an open space on the mountain. This cultivation place has the densest spiritual energy among the 6 peaks. It's really good to cultivate here. This is the first peak. Yang Shirong makes a decision. Then, he led the group of disciples and named the 2 peaks to the left and right as the second peak and the third peak. Sky Peak and Learning Peak were neighbors. The last peak was named Divine Water Peak by everyone and was used as the main peak. Yang Shirong happily pulled all the disciples to planning to first plant a row of bamboo forest on the main peak. The little stoic opened her small mouth. She thought of the bamboo forest Lu Zhang transplanted at the top of Red Cloud Peak, then looked at the bare land on Holy Water Peak. It was obvious that a row of bamboos had been planted here before. Lu Zhang rubbed his nose. Second sect master, do you want to plant a plum blossom outside the Xuanji Palace? That's fine too. The little stoic nodded and casually said, we'll return to the academy now. Elders, don't forget your mission. Hurry up and find the 101 first-generation disciples. Our holy water sect has at least 200 people. The little stoic said expressionlessly, your Xuanji sect should at least give me 20 people. Was this a high requirement? It wasn't high at all right? Second sect master, don't worry. After we finish repairing the Xuanji Palace, we'll descend the mountain and immediately search everywhere. I believe that we'll definitely find many disciples in time. Chapter 2943. Abba grunted and turned to look at Yang Shirong and the others. Second Martial Ant, if there's anything, we can contact each other through the transmission talisman. Okay. Yang Shirong smiled and nodded. It will take some time for the sect's construction to be completed. Don't worry about us. You can go and do your own things. Little junior sister, take care. Little junior sister, if you're tired from studying in the academy, come back and play for a few days. Everyone gave instructions at once. Yang Shirong then said, after our sect is finished, I'll bring them to the great north-facing forest to gain experience. Abba nodded. Gaining experience was definitely an essential part of cultivation. Many Xiozha who had grown up in large aristocratic families would suffer great losses in battle because they did not have enough experience. After giving Yang Shirong and the others a few more simple instructions, Abba then went to the waterfall with Emolien to look for the 2 swanny eggs that were happily swimming in the water. The little monk reached out to hold the corner of Chiao Mu's skirt as he jogged with her on his short legs. Benefactress, this young monk is unfamiliar with this place, so you mustn't abandon this young monk, okay? I didn't say I'd leave you behind. Abba looked down at the little monk. But if you return to the academy with me, wouldn't that be too eye-catching? The little monk pursed his soft diamond-shaped lips. His little handsome face was full of seriousness. Arba saw his tense expression and couldn't help but want to laugh. She raised her hand to rub his head and said, "I'll send you to a good place. When you want to see me, you can come out and see me any time. How's that?" When the little monk heard the first half of her sentence, he couldn't help but want to cry. After hearing the entire sentence, he couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. "Benefactress, don't go back on your words." Arba waved her hand and had Little Tree bring the little monk into Paradise Planet first. Meanwhile, she and Emolien were standing above the waterfall, looking down at the 2 hickory eggs leaping about in the pool. "Come up!" Arba roared. After tossing around for so long, they still didn't hatch. She was happy for nothing. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 rays of light, one black and one purple, flashed, and the 2 eggs quietly fell into Arba's palm. Could it be due to the lack of saint energy? Arba's eyes flickered as he looked at Emolien, who was standing beside him. Emolien nodded. "That's very likely. Look at these 2 eggs. They have absorbed almost all of the scattered saint energy in the pool. It's obvious that they need the support of the saint power to break out of their shells." Arba reached out and knocked on the 2 balls, then stroked them. "Forget it. Let's not dwell on this for now." Above the 3 prefectures, even the deity domain was hard to find, let alone the saint domain, which was a treasure trove that could only be found by chance. Perhaps, the place where Rotten Peach Blossom had stayed before was a holy region. However, every time the venerable immortal talked about this place, his face looked as if he had eaten a fly. He always liked to use a simple word to summarize it: boring. What kind of place was this to make him so resentful, to the point where he used the word boring to describe the saint domain? Arba took back the Swanee eggs. Emolien called out Little Seven. The 2 of them rode on the golden dragon and quickly returned to the academy. When Arba went to the cultivation hall to cancel her leave, it was already the 3rd day. Her 2 small eyebrows were knitted together as she thought about the 2 stingy instructors in the cultivation hall, who knew how they would deduct her contribution points. Chapter 2944. At this time, all the students in the various halls should be in class, so walking on the academy road was very quiet. After Emolien returned to the academy, no one knew what she was busy with. Arba didn't follow up and ask, so she decided to go to the cultivation hall to cancel her leave. After all, 500 contribution points were deducted a day, so if she was late for a day, she would lose 500 more. Even though she had 30,000 contribution points left, she couldn't afford to lose 500 points a day like this. When she arrived at the cultivation hall's gate, Arba's gaze suddenly fell on a person sitting in the middle of the lawn. This person was sitting in front of the cultivation hall's gate, lazily leaning against the back of the chair. His legs were very unruly, as if he was waiting for her here. But Arba was very clear that she didn't know this person. She was probably a little face-blind, but her memory had never been that bad. She would at least have some impression of people she had met before. This young man in front of her, who she had no impression of, was probably someone she had never met before. Arba walked straight to the teacher's office area, but unexpectedly, that person stretched out a long leg and blocked her way. Arba's eyes narrowed dangerously, her cold gaze was like a sharp arrow, suddenly shooting towards the man in the chair. "Crown Princess, you've really made me wait for a long time." When Su Shihua saw this kind of gaze, he couldn't help but be slightly taken aback. Then, he returned to his lazy and unbridled appearance when they first met. "What's the matter?" "Crown Princess probably doesn't know a small person like me." Su Shihua stood up and looked at her with a smile that wasn't a smile. This person had a fair and handsome face, and his appearance wasn't bad, but when he looked at people with his slender eyes, it clearly made people feel a little uncomfortable. This kind of sizing-up gaze made it seem as if Arba was a commodity in his eyes, which made Arba unhappy. "Indeed, I don't know you." Xiao Mu coldly interrupted the latter half of his words. "If all the cats and dogs in the world were like you, introducing themselves to me every time they stopped me on the road, then wouldn't I be busy to death?" Su Shihua didn't expect that the little girl wouldn't give him any face. There was a hint of anger in his eyes as he sneered and said, "I'm a senior of the cultivation hall. I just came out of seclusion 2 days ago. I've heard some people in the academy talk about the Crown Princess, and I feel that your skills should be pretty good. How about it? Are you interested in sparring with this Sue? That's good. Let me have a taste of the Crown Princess's skills. Su Shihua looked at the woman in front of him gloomily. If they were to make a move later, he would definitely ruthlessly humiliate this little girl. The little girl was still young, but her figure looked really good. Su Shihua's gaze wandered around Aber's body, and his eyes revealed a bit of calculation and malice. Who asked her to humiliate his sister, Su Shi Tao, in the despondent pavilion? After Tao returned home, not only was his eldest brother grounded, but she was also tormented and almost died from illness. Aber naturally saw the sparks of hatred dancing in Su Shihua's eyes, but she was still a bit puzzled. After all, she had long forgotten about the matter of Princess Tao in the despondent pavilion. How could she connect the two together? Aber's eyes swept over him coldly. You really want to fight with me? This disdainful tone completely infuriated Su Shihua. Just because I call you the Crown Princess, you really think you're high and mighty. Your status hasn't been decided yet. Chapter 29:45. To tell the truth, Aber didn't want to pay attention to this idiot. She came to find an instructor to cancel her leave, so she didn't have the time to bicker with this idiot. Aber immediately circled around his stool with small steps, unwilling to even spare him a glance out of the corner of her eye. Su Shihua was thoroughly enraged. He abruptly kicked the stool next to him and darted to the side, blocking in front of Aber again. Ever since he became famous, no one had dared to be so impudent in front of him. So what if she was the Crown Princess? In this world, strength reigned supreme. His teacher had once said that he, Su Shihua, was destined to be a dragon among men and would certainly ascend to mystique venerable rank within 300 years. Ever since he entered this academy, he had always been admired because he had already reached the peak of the 15th level of the spirit realm at the mere age of 21. He didn't know how many female shoujo were rushing in front of him. Moreover, Su Shihua was the kind of man with a glib tongue. He usually played like a fish in water among female cultivators, and the number of women who wanted to become his partner could line up from the Imperial Academy all the way to the great north-facing forest. He had always thought highly of himself, so he simply couldn't tolerate Aber's attitude toward him. The status of female cultivators in the upper 3 provinces truly wasn't high. Due to innate restrictions, only 10 or 20% of female cultivators could perfectly pass the 5 spirits reincarnation trial and break through to the god realm. In the eyes of Su Shihua and many male cultivators, female cultivators should obediently submit to men. This was in accordance with the rules of the upper 3 provinces. A stoic face like the little stoic, who could draw hatred wherever she went, immediately infuriated Su Shihua. He summoned a long saber with a blue watery glow from his conscience and slashed it in Aber's direction without another word, refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Su Shihua's eyes flashed with a cold glint. You're merely a future crown princess whose status hasn't been confirmed, yet you dare to be so impudent in front of Senior. His Highness the Crown Prince truly doesn't know how to teach women. Su Shihua sneered. Since that was the case, then he would take His Highness the Crown Prince's place to properly teach this woman who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth a lesson. He would teach her a principle. In the upper 3 continents, identity didn't mean everything. The saber landed on the ground in the courtyard, leaving a long white mark. Su Shihua shouted angrily. The moment his saber slashed through the air, he couldn't help but frown slightly. How did that last dodge it? It was strange that he couldn't see her movements. However, even if he was slightly faster, there was no way he could escape from him. He was a level 15 Great Spirit Master and possessed 8 levels of the Water Spirit. For ordinary people, being able to comprehend 6 levels of the 5 spirit origins was already not bad. Of course, Su Shihua didn't know that what Aber had comprehended was the source of holy water. It had long since surpassed the 9th level of spirit water. At this time, Su Shihua still had great confidence in himself. He raised the long saber in his hand and encircled the long saber with both hands, completely enveloping it. Immediately afterwards, he leaped forward and arrived in front of Qiao Mu. His eyes flashed, and the long saber slashed at the hem of her skirt. This despicable thing! Arba glanced at him coldly and dodged his blade with extreme speed. You're courting death. This man's objective was too clear. Did he want to make a fool of Jojo? Did he want to seize the opportunity to rip apart her clothes and expose her to others? Haha. Naive guy. Just let him suffer the consequences of his own actions. Chapter 2946. Qiao Mu's fury was completely enraged. Originally, she didn't want to cause so much trouble and just ignored this lowly man in front of her, who knew that when she wanted to settle the matter peacefully, the other party would keep pushing her. She, Arba, had never been a person who was afraid of trouble. She just found it troublesome. However, since the other party wanted to die so badly, then she would fulfill his wish. Su Shihua felt that the aura of the girl in front of him had completely changed in an instant. Previously, she still had a lazy attitude. Now, she was like a little hedgehog with countless spikes all over her body. Her pair of cold eyes contained a fierce light as she coldly stared at him without blinking. This gaze made his heart inexplicably skip a beat. At the same time, he felt that he was actually frightened by the little girl's gaze. It was really intolerable. Su Shihua was a little angry from embarrassment. He couldn't help but sneer. Arba, today let me teach you the principles of being a person. Don't be too ruthless in everything. Women should be more obedient. Don't force yourself to do everything. Su Shihua's words were full of contempt for the woman. His attitude was arrogant, and he raised his chin slightly, like a peacock with its tail open. She didn't know where he got the face to be so arrogant in front of her. Go die. Qiao Mu glared at him impatiently before throwing out two small, round, transparent balls with a flip of her hand. The commotion caused by Su Shihua's machete had already attracted the people who were in class in the cultivation hall. When Mentor Ma rushed out with a group of students, he just happened to see Miss Qiao throw the two small transparent balls in Su Shihua's direction. Su Shihua smiled contemptuously. Part of the spiritual armor formed on his arm and blocked in front of him, intending to wave away the two small balls that were flying straight at him. Just two spiritual energy balls and you want to show off in front of me? You're too naive, right? Su Shihua, get out of the way. Mentor Ma's eyes narrowed and couldn't help but roar. What spiritual energy balls? Those were obviously God power, right? These were two godly power balls, all right? 2. Oh my God, she was indeed the crown princess of the divine land. She could casually throw out two priceless divine power balls. No, now wasn't the time to think about this problem, but... Everyone, get into formation. Open the defensive barrier. Defend, defend. The instructors shrieked. Everyone was in a state of panic as they activated their defensive spirit artifacts. Those who had spirit armor quickly formed a spirit armor to protect themselves. The instructors took a step forward and worked together to set up a large defensive barrier. At the same time, boom, boom. Two thunder-like tremors resounded in the small courtyard of the cultivation hall, the sound piercing through the clouds. Even the students in the other halls who were in the middle of their lessons were shocked. In the armament refining branch, a thin and tall youth who was standing beside Emolien and carefully crafting a defensive profound weapon could not help but tremble and almost put a material into the weapon cauldron by mistake. F***CK. I was so scared that my hands were shaking. The young man mumbled. The sound seems to be coming from the direction of the refining hall. Instructor Zhang from the refining hall couldn't help but look out of the window. Emolien kept a weapon in the weapon cauldron. After greeting Instructor Zhang, she quickly walked out. He felt that such a big commotion should be caused by his Jojo. When Emolien thought of this, she couldn't help but want to cover her face. Chapter 2947. When Instructor Zhang saw that everyone was craning their necks to look outside, he knew that they weren't in the mood to continue refining, so he said, that's all for today. Those who want to leave can disperse. All the students hastily tidied up their utensils and remnants of materials. They didn't even have time to tidy them up before hastily stuffing them into their inner worlds. Then, they surged out with the large group and headed to the cultivation hall to watch the show. Cough, 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 cough. Instructor Ma forcefully waved the foggy dust in front of his eyes. He blinked his eyes twice in succession before he could clearly see what kind of scene was in front of him. A perfectly good cultivation hall had a large hole opened up in the middle. It was at least 10 meters deep. Su Shihua had probably fallen into the hole because no one could find him even after a long time. The little stoic expressionlessly stood next to the hole with her hands behind her back. She had the demeanor of a great master, causing people to involuntarily twitch their mouths. Although it looked like Su Shihua had been tricked quite miserably. But for some reason, everyone had an inexplicable urge to burst into laughter. No, they couldn't laugh. Su Shihua was already very miserable, so they absolutely couldn't laugh out loud. Pfft. It was unknown which dear friend couldn't hold it in and choked on his saliva before bursting into laughter. When he saw Instructor Ma glaring fiercely at him, he hastily turned his back and pretended to cough. Student Arba. Instructor Ma simply didn't know what to say. You. He stuttered for a long time but actually couldn't continue. Instructor Ma actually felt at a loss for words when faced with that expressionless stoic face. Simply outrageous. Instructor Ma squeezed out these 5 words after a long time. He pointed at Instructor Gao on the side. You say it. Instructor Gao's mouth twitched. He walked forward a few steps and cleared his throat. Student Xiao, what exactly is going on? Can you tell the teachers about it? Everyone at the same time. Instructors, how big of a misunderstanding do you have about Student Xiao to think that this little fellow is someone who's willing to waste time explaining things to them? Talk to the teachers? Talk my ass. Look at this little girl's expression, she's too lazy to talk. Arba looked at them expressionlessly, then lowered his head to look at the hole that was more than 10 meters deep. When he felt a scorching aura rising from the bottom of the pit, he knew that Su Shihua had finally recovered and was about to come up. The little stoic was expressionless. She took out another 2 god power balls from her pocket and directly smashed them into that pit under the horrified gazes of all the mentors and students. Don't. Mentor Ma was so agitated that his voice cracked. However, as soon as he said that, the 2 godly power balls bounced out. Boom. Boom. Everyone was dumbfounded. The entire place was silent. Except for the occasional person who swallowed hard. When Emolien dashed over, she almost bumped into Duan Yu's group at the entrance. He turned to look and saw that there were actually many fellows following behind Duan Yu who came to watch the show. The people from the Pill Hall also came over. Everyone gathered together and squeezed through the bamboo-fenced courtyard walls of the cultivation hall. As soon as they entered the room, they saw such a strange scene. The mentors and students of the cultivation hall looked like their acupoints had been hit as they stood there speechlessly, looking as comical as blocks of wood. Chapter 2948. What happened? Emolien held back her laughter as she slowly walked towards her Jojo. Looking at the situation in front of him, was it really his Jojo who caused trouble again? Arba glanced at him and silently put the 2 god powerballs that she was about to throw back into her pocket. A fly flew in front of me and nagged me. It's fine now. He was probably beaten half to death and must have been taught a great lesson. What kind of girl should listen to a man obediently? Hee. This strange man actually jumped out of his own accord and wanted to teach her how to be a person? Then he should learn how to be a person first. Arba smirked sarcastically and went forward to hold Emolien's hand. Suddenly thinking of something, Arba hurriedly turned her head to look at Instructor Ma and said, I'm here to cancel my leave. Mentor Ma was so angry that he didn't know where to vent. Before he could speak, he heard the little girl rebuke, The students of your academy are too outrageous. I'm here to cancel my leave and he actually waited for me to come. Here, there and here. He should pay for all the compensation. Arbor pointed at the floor tiles and the potted plants that were damaged during the fight. And the time I wasted, he should compensate me according to the price. What's his name again? Arbor finally remembered to ask for the person's name. Instructor Ma and the others didn't know what to say to her. They had seen the guilty party complaining first, but they had never seen such a vile act. This little girl smashed the person until he fell into a hole and couldn't climb out, and she still asked for compensation. The compensation isn't much, just 100,000 spirit coins. Qi Xian tugged at her sleeves and reminded her, Chow Chow, the Academy's compensation is converted into contribution points. Oh. Arbor looked at Instructor Ma expressionlessly, then transfer 3,000 contribution points from that person's account to me. He got off easy. After that, she couldn't help but ask again, what's his name? Mentor Ma and the others all felt that encountering this guy was simply bad luck since their ancestors. Hua! Hua! At this moment, a voice came from outside the courtyard. He saw a man in a royal blue robe with his black hair neatly combed up. He quickly walked through the door and arrived at the edge of the pit in a few steps. At this moment, Su Shihua was also relying on his own strength to crawl to the edge of the pit bit by bit. When he looked up, he saw his elder brother, Emo Shikong, looking at him with concern. Su Shihua suddenly felt a stomach full of bitterness and grievances. All of it surged into his heart, and he wished he could cry out loud. At this moment, he no longer had that high-spirited appearance from before. He looked like a bald beggar. There was a bald patch on the top of his head, and not even a blade of grass could grow on it. He also felt a burning pain on his face. He couldn't have been disfigured by that ruthless girl, right? At the thought that his face might be ruined by the other party, Su Shihua couldn't help but panic. He kept raising his hand to touch his face. Although he was a man and didn't need to pay too much attention to his appearance, it didn't mean that he could accept a disfigured face. Big brother, big brother. Su Shihua quickly grabbed Emo Shikong's hand tightly. Emo Shikong's gaze was also somewhat complicated. His gaze turned and landed on Prince Emo and Arbor. These two were still as elegant as ever. Even if they were just standing in the crowd with indifferent gazes, there was a sense of alienation and unapproachable. Chapter 2949. Greetings, Crown Prince, Crown Princess. Emo Shikong turned around and cupped his hands in greeting towards Prince Emo and Arbor. Oh, Brother King Zheng has also come. Emo Lien nodded and responded absent-mindedly. King Zheng, Emo Shikong, reached out and pulled Su Shihua up from the edge of the pit. He turned his head to look at Arbor and asked in a low voice, How did my younger brother offend the Crown Princess to actually provoke the Crown Princess to kill him? Su Shihua's current appearance was truly a bit tragic. Emo Shikong almost couldn't bear to look straight at him. The Crown Princess' actions were too much. What kind of deep hatred could there be for her to act like this and continuously hit Su Shihua with God Power Pearls? Although Su Shihua's cultivation had already reached the 15th level of the Spirit Realm, he still hadn't broken through to the God Realm. How could he withstand being hit by the God Power Pearls again and again? No wonder he looked so miserable now. Being hit by the God Power Pearls like this, even if he didn't die, a layer of his skin would be smashed off. Big brother. Avenge me, big brother. Su Shihua finally straightened his body with great difficulty and uttered broken syllables from his mouth. He stared in shock and anger as he said, She tricked big brother. She tricked. A trace of anger and resentment flashed through Su Shihua's eyes. He used all his strength to grab his big brother Emo Shikong's hand and stuttered. If this woman hadn't suddenly thrown so many God Power Pearls at him, how could he have been beaten to the point where he had no room to retaliate? It was simply a joke. In Su Shihua's opinion, Arbor, who used the aura-concealing talisman, was merely a little third-level spirit master. If Su Shihua wanted to crush a little third-level spirit master like this, it would be a matter of minutes. However, things didn't go as he wished. The result was that he, Su Shihua, was beaten up and fell into the pit like a dead dog, unable to climb out. This matter made Su Shihua unable to raise his head, especially in front of a few junior sisters who had rushed over after hearing the news, and who usually had great admiration for him. He simply did not know what to do. He was so angry that he was about to explode. His scarlet eyes stared at Arba. Arba. Pa. Before Su Shihua could figure out what was going on, he was slapped hard on the cheek. With a crisp pa sound, the corner of his mouth was slightly crooked, and he staggered back a few steps. Only when Mo Shikong reached out to support him did he manage to stabilize himself. Big brother. Su Shihua raised his hand to cover half of his face that was in so much pain. He looked at his big brother with reddened eyes. Although he didn't say anything, the meaning in his eyes was very obvious. Others have already bullied your younger brother like this. Don't you have anything to say? Mo Shikong's face was also very ugly at this time. He turned his head and looked at Prince Mo, who had personally slapped his younger brother Su Shihua across the air. Your Highness, my younger brother is young and insensible. He has made a fool of himself. When I go back, I will definitely teach him well. Brother Zheng really doesn't know how to teach sister-in-law. Ever since seeing Mo Shikong's appearance and the interaction between him and Su Shihua, Arba finally understood who this man in front of her was. She finally understood why this strange man would suddenly make a move on her. It turned out that this Su Shihua was the elder brother of Princess Tao, who she had previously taught a lesson in the Despondent Pavilion. Indeed, like sister, like brother. Both of them were unreasonable people. Mo Shikong tightly pursed his lips and suppressed the anger in his belly. Chapter 2950. When he noticed the faint mockery on Xiao Mu's face, the anger in his heart shot up in a flash. He almost couldn't suppress it. Crown Princess, you have already used so many divine powerballs to teach my brother a lesson. What more do you want? Mo Shikong's tone was very cold, as if he had been fished out from the depths of cold water. Although he didn't say anything, his opinion of this young crown prince consort had plummeted to the freezing point. He always felt that this girl should be a shrew. If she entered the Mo family, she would definitely cause the entire royal family to have no peaceful days. Mo Lian's face also darkened, and her gaze towards King Zheng became extremely cold. Brother King Zheng, you don't understand the situation, and directly yelled at the crown princess. Do you think that all the responsibility lies on the crown princess? Was it not? Mo Shikong looked at Mo Lian with an ugly expression. He tightly clenched his fist and desperately suppressed his anger. But a wave of evil fire still burned from the bottom of his heart, and he couldn't control it. It was too infuriating. Your Highness, to be honest, if the crown princess hadn't used so many divine powerballs in succession, how could Hua have been beaten so badly? In terms of strength, the crown princess won't even be able to touch a strand of Hua's hair. Was it not? Mo Shikong coldly looked at Prince Mo's icy expression. He slowly lowered his eyes and said indifferently, Your Highness should know very well whether what I said is the truth or not. You don't agree? Mo Lian turned her head and coldly looked at Su Shihua, who shrunk his neck and stood behind his elder brother Mo Shikong, and asked very forcefully. Su Shihua was pricked by the cold air released by the crown prince for no reason. He couldn't help but tremble for a while, but he forced himself to nod repeatedly. Of course I don't agree. His thoughts were basically the same as his elder brother Mo Shikong. If Arba hadn't cheated by using so many divine powerballs, wouldn't it have been a matter of minutes for him to crush the little girl in front of him with his cultivation as a level 15 great spiritual master? Arba smirked and looked at him casually. If you're not convinced, let's continue. Didn't you say you wanted to teach this crown princess a lesson? Come. Arba waved his small hand at Su Shihua. He looked like he was calling for a cat or a dog to come forward. The trace of mockery in his eyes was almost clearly discernible. There was actually someone who was rushing to be beaten up? Mo Lian also expressed that she didn't understand. She smiled and squeezed the little fellow's little hand. She slowly walked back a few steps, leaving an open space beside the deep pit for the two to fight. Hurry up! Xiao Mu grumpily hollered at Su Shihua, can't you generate spiritual armor? I'll also create a spiritual armor for you to see. Heh. Su Shihua was unexpectedly amused by the little fellow. You're just a little level 3 spiritual master. What kind of spiritual armor can you generate? The spiritual armor generated by normal people was a partial defense, such as the arms, chest, head, and so on. Su Shihua, for example, was able to generate spiritual armor on both arms. He thought that he was already pretty good. After all, some people could only generate spiritual armor for one arm. If he wanted to expand the range of the spirit armor, it would take a lot of effort to expand every part of the armor. Abba looked coldly at Su Shihua, who had generated spiritual armor on both arms. Her small mouth inadvertently curled into a lazy arc. You're a frog in a well. Arrogant fool. Chapter 29:51. Today, he would let this idiot know that there was always someone better than him out there. In the future, he wouldn't easily offend some people that he couldn't handle. Auber sneered. In an instant, a faint transparent layer of spiritual armor covered her red battle clothes like a second layer of skin and quickly spread up. It spread from her limbs to her chest and back, then wrapped around her slender neck. It climbed all the way up until it completely covered her head. From head to toe, a full-body spiritual armor was formed in an instant. The light and thin full-body spirit armor clung to his clothes, almost as if it didn't exist. However, anyone with eyes could see that this was a peerless full-body spiritual armor. Everyone simultaneously sucked in a breath of cold air and stared fixedly at Xiao Mu as if they were looking at a little monster. This little girl could actually form a full-body spiritual armor? Weren't spirit masters below level 5 unable to form spiritual armor on their own? Why was it that when it came to this little girl, it was as if the laws of heaven and earth didn't exist? Qi Xianxian jumped up excitedly and waved her little fist in the air. Jojo is mighty, Jojo will win. Duanmu Qing and the others standing beside her wanted nothing more than to go up and cover Xuanxuan's mouth. This guy who lacked a backbone, with this roar, everyone's attention was attracted to them. Full-body spiritual armor? Su Shihua looked at Auber in front of him in shock. He simply didn't know how to describe his feelings at this moment. The little girl actually formed a full-body spiritual armor with a wave of her hand and covered her from head to toe? Before he could react, the little girl in front of him lightly tapped her foot and rushed towards him like a speeding cannonball. That speed could almost be described as light. She was as fast as a streak of cold light and arrived in front of Su Shihua with a whoosh. Su Shihua only had time to cross his arms in front of him and block her sudden punch. Bang! The little girl's fist landed on his crossed arms, and a crack instantly appeared on the spirit armor covering his arms with a crisp, crack sound. Everyone was dumbfounded. Was this the speed and strength of a level 3 spirit master? It didn't look like it at all. Is Su Shihua a rank 15 Great Spirit Master? That's right. Not only is he a level 15 Great Spirit Master, but he also has an 8th level Water Spirit. The young lady seems to have fierce firepower, but she might not be Su Shihua's match. Before the person could finish complaining, he saw the young lady throw 2 more punches. She punched Su Shihua's face. In order to block her old fists, Su Shihua had no choice but to cross his arms and guard his front. As a result, the spiritual armor that formed on his arms completely shattered with a crack under Xiao Mu's 3 punches. The onlookers standing in the front row could hardly believe their eyes. What? A level 3 Little Soul Master was able to shatter the defensive spiritual armor of a level 15 Great Soul Master? This was simply a joke. Impossible, impossible. The onlookers in the front row could not help but raise their hands and rub their eyes. Then, they opened their mouths wide in shock. Because at the same time, they saw a horrifying scene. After Miss Chow shattered the spirit armor on the other person's arm, she pulled out a huge black axe that was even taller than her. Chapter 29:52. With a momentum that could topple mountains and overturn seas, she ferociously smashed down on Su Shihua's head. If she hit him, wouldn't Su Shihua's head split open like a melon ladle? Red and white would all be exposed. Everyone couldn't resist closing their eyes, and the more timid ones even raised their hands to block their eyes. In the blink of an eye, Su Shihua continuously retreated several steps and threw out defensive spiritual tools from his inner world, putting them on himself one by one. Su Shihua felt that it was absolutely impossible for him to receive the enormous might of the axe before him. Ahua! Mo Shikong's pupils contracted, and he cried out in alarm. His figure swayed, but just as he was about to step forward, he was stopped by Prince Mo. It's best that Brother Prince Zhang doesn't act rashly. Mo Lien said indifferently, if Brother Prince Zhang is itching for a fight, why don't I exchange a few moves with Brother Prince? The implication was that Prince Zhang absolutely couldn't be allowed to step forward and meddle in this matter. Not to mention that Aber was disgusted with calling his parents when he couldn't win. Mo Lien was also very disgusted. Obviously, everything was caused by him, but because he couldn't beat Qiao Qiao, he repeatedly pretended to be the victim. Wouldn't everything be fine if you didn't stir up trouble? He didn't believe that Jojo would rush up to fight him for no reason while he was walking on the road. 99% of the people who could cause such a big conflict with Qiao Qiao were their own doing. Mo Shikong's gaze was slightly angry as he glared at Mo Lien and said, Your Highness the Crown Prince. Brother Prince Zhang doesn't need to say anything. Mo Lien's gaze was still as ice, and she sneered, Brother Prince Zhang, don't tell me you don't know who caused today's matter? Wanting to pat his butt and scram after stirring up trouble? Did he think that they were good-natured people who could be easily molded? But Mo Shikong still wanted to say something, but that little stoic's axe had already landed. The huge black axe crashed into Su Shihua's outer defensive barrier and shattered it with a bang. Soon after, everyone saw the little stoic shattering Su Shihua's defenses one after another like a hot knife through butter. Su Shihua's body continuously emitted crackling sounds like firecrackers. In the end, he spat out a mouthful of blood and stumbled back a dozen steps before falling to the ground. He hung his head dejectedly and looked at Aber in horror. Aber pointed his sword at Su Shihua's throat. Please show mercy. Mo Shikong roared angrily and hastily leaped in front of Su Shihua to block the little stoic's long sword. With a swipe of his right hand, Mo Shikong took out a golden token from his inner world and waved it slightly in front of the little stoic. He said gravely, Crown Princess, this prince has the Emperor's death exemption golden medallion in hand. This prince is now ordering you to immediately stop all attacks. Kill him. Mo Lien's gaze chilled, and she seemed to murmur softly to the air. But the instant the command was issued, four incomparably swift shadows appeared around the little stoic. They circled around Mo Shikong's figure and leaped towards Su Shihua. 4 long swords simultaneously stabbed towards Su Shihua without the slightest bit of hesitation. Emperor's Shadow Guards? The most elite secret squad of the underworld court guards? Mo Shikong's pupils contracted repeatedly. At this critical juncture, he obtained strength from who knows where, but his entire body abruptly burst forth with an intense divine power, blocking the 4 people's attacks one after another. Chapter 2953. Mo Lien's eyes darkened as she looked at Mo Shikong. With a wave of her hand, the 4 ghostly shadows quickly disappeared. The crowd could not help but rub their eyes. If it were not for the faint trace of blood at the corner of Mo Shikong's mouth, they would have thought that their eyes were playing tricks on them. The 4 of them disappeared as quickly as they appeared. If it were not for the fact that they had been staring at the scene, they would not have been able to catch a glimpse of the 4 figures in the blink of an eye. Has Royal Prince Zhang steeled his heart to become enemies with us husband and wife? Mo Lien's lips curled up in a mocking sneer. Mo Shikong's cold face was filled with anger. He could not help but cough up a small mouthful of blood. Su Shihua's eyes flashed. He scrambled to his brother's back and exclaimed, Big brother! Damn it! Even his brother was not a match for the 4 shadow guards. Who were they? Among the many people present, probably only King Zhang, Mo Shikong, knew who these 4 people were. Not only did the Emperor send the Purple Forest Guards to the Crown Prince, but he also secretly rewarded the Hades court guards. That was not all. The Emperor Shadow Guards, the most elite of the Hades court guards, had 4 of them by the Crown Prince's side. The Emperor Shadow Guards were legendary. Every one of them was at least mystique venerable rank and above. They were the strongest transcendent god Shadow Guards. It was obvious how important this son of his was to the Emperor. If it wasn't for the Crown Prince's gentle wave of his hand, Mo Shikong's life would have been lost at the Imperial School. Mo Shikong could not help but laugh bitterly. He turned his head and glared at his brother, Su Shihua. His 2 sisters-in-law were too domineering. In the Imperial City, not everything could be covered by Mo Shikong. Now that his brother had kicked the iron plate known as the Crown Princess, he did not know if he regretted it now. What Mo Shikong did not know was why Su Shihua regretted it. He was full of hatred. You cheated. Su Shihua reacted. He hid behind his brother and pointed a trembling finger in the direction of the little Crown Princess. You are not a little level 3 spiritual master. As soon as these words were spoken, there was an uproar all around. At first, everyone also felt that something was off. Now that Su Shihua had pointed it out, everyone wanted to slap their thighs and shout, "Yes!" How was this the fighting ability of a 3rd-rank spirit master? What kind of rank 3 spirit master could smash a portion of a rank 15 great spirit master's spirit armor with a single swing of his axe? Wasn't this a joke? Everyone's gazes fell on Aber in confusion. Aber expressionlessly looked at Mo Shikong and his brother. His gaze coldly fell on Su Shihua. When this little girl emitted cold air, she was like a small moving ice sculpture. There was no trace of a person in her eyes at all. Everyone present couldn't help but shudder at the sight of such a young lady. Clang! The long sword was thrown to the ground by her, making a soft and crisp sound. Kill yourself. Everyone stared at her, dumbfounded. They thought that after Mo Shikong blocked the attack for his brother and got injured, this matter should be over. Who would have thought? This was not over. Mo Shikong could not help but tremble in anger. At this time, he was still holding the death-free gold medallion issued by the great emperor, but now he only felt that the death-free gold medallion was very hot. Today will be the 10th chapter. First 2 chapters. After the 4 drip, he should be home at 3 o'clock. Calculating the time, it should be around 12 o'clock in the evening. Continue with the 8th chapter. Long wait, Mr. Author, are you feeling better? Chapter 2954. In front of the little Crown Princess, this death-free gold medallion given by the great emperor was of no use at all. The young Crown Prince consort's attitude was clearly stated. She wanted Su Shihua to commit suicide and let him know that not everyone's place could be so easily provoked. Many times, his big brother might not be able to protect him for a lifetime. Looking at the long sword that was lying quietly on the ground with a faint green light flowing around it, Mo Shikong's face turned purple with anger. Big brother, big brother. Su Shihua was a little panicked. He secretly glanced at the little Crown Princess's cold face, then hurriedly crawled forward and hugged his big brother's trousers. Big brother, save me, big brother. How could this Crown Princess be so difficult to deal with? His big brother had already blocked the attack of the 4 hidden guards for him. His big brother had even vomited blood. What else did she want? And the few girls who originally came to watch the show with laughter also had ugly expressions. They were all junior brother Su's admirers and pursuers before. After all, with Su Shihua's family background as the younger brother of King Zheng, coupled with his outstanding talent and cultivation, many female disciples in the academy had taken a fancy to him the moment he appeared. The Su Shihua that the girls usually saw was naturally elegant and confident. How could he be as cowardly as he was now, and even hugging his big brother Mo Shikong's leg and crying? The girls' expressions changed at the same time. They instinctively felt that they were really blind in the past. They actually wanted to hook up with this kind of person? Crown Princess. Mo Shikong took a deep breath and raised his hand to press his frowning brows. My brother acted rashly in this matter. But what should be punished has been punished, and what should be beaten has been beaten. Crown Princess, if you continue to be so overbearing, isn't it a little inexcusable? Emo Shikong. The young Crown Prince consort had a cold expression on her face, so she directly called her by her full name. I gave you face time and time again because of Lien's mother. Don't think that your face is big enough to be able to point fingers in front of me time and time again. Emo Shikong only felt that his heart was slightly stifled. I gave you face and called you Brother King Zheng. I didn't give you face. What can you do? The little Crown Princess kicked the long sword on the ground. I must kill Su Shihua today. Her ferocious gaze landed coldly on Emo Shikong. She instantly turned hostile and said ruthlessly, "It's useless for anyone to stop me." Who dares to stop me? Emo Shikong slightly clenched his fists after hearing Emo Shikong shout. The scene became very stiff in an instant. Everyone was baffled and stood there in silence. Even the onlookers felt the cold wind blowing and couldn't help but take a few steps back. Perhaps even Lady Chow Chow herself did not realize that once she was truly angered, everyone would become listless. Even Qi Xianxian and the others who were familiar with her were trembling in fear and did not dare to open their mouths. If she wanted to slaughter Su Shihua, then Su Shihua would have to lie down and obediently wait to be slaughtered. For a moment, the entire courtyard fell into an awkward silence. Holy Sun Mi Yen is here. Outside the crowd, there came a small rustling murmur. Holy Sun Mi Yen, who was dressed in a holy white robe and cold and handsome, walked straight out from the middle of the separated crowd. Behind him were several priests in the same white robes, each holding a short walking stick in their hands. Everyone bowed to the holy son of the temple. Mi Yan's gaze landed coldly on Arba. You can't kill him. Chapter 2955. He has already obtained the quota to go to the Sun-Moon Mystery Realm this time. From the moment he received the token to go to the Sun-Moon Mystery Realm, he received the protection of our Sun-Moon Temple. Holy Sun Mi Yen slowly raised a hand and said coldly, "Before we set off for the Sun-Moon Mystery Realm, he can't die." Arba glanced at the Holy Sun, and her expressionless face instantly turned cold. Holy Sun Mi Yen found that the little girl in front of him, whose eyes were as calm as a dry well, were like two ice beads in a cold pool, slipping into a black abyss little by little. Heartless, indifferent, pitch black, and harsh. There was almost no light in her eyes. Why? In her previous life, any random cat or dog, who was unhappy with her and wanted to step on her a few times, could find trouble with her without a word? Why? When she fought back, there would always be someone who appeared in front of those weak people with the face of a righteous messenger, looking at her with accusatory eyes, accusing her of being vicious and cruel. Was it her fault? Was it all her fault? She deserved to be suppressed, deserved to be found trouble with. She fought back and beat the other party like a dog. Was it her fault? When she was the weak party, which of these strong people's relatives and friends would sympathize with her and help her? Ha ha, it was simply ridiculous. Jojo, what are you thinking? Emo Lien immediately realized that his little wife's state was not right. He hurriedly went forward and pulled her back to his side, patting her back to comfort her. Don't let your imagination run wild, Jojo. Leave this matter to me, okay? He lifted her little chin with one hand, making her silent eyes meet his. Her body was warm, as if the ice and snow around her had melted a lot. Arba came back to her senses and looked up at Emo Lien. Emo Lien looked at her clear eyes, which were as clear as water. His slender figure was faintly rippling. His heart slightly relaxed, and he calmly called out, "Little Seven, roar," after a fierce dragon roar. Everyone felt a golden light suddenly appear in front of their eyes, which was exceptionally dazzling. After adapting to the glaring golden light with great difficulty, he slowly opened his eyes. A coiled golden dragon gently swept its tail and rolled up Su Shihua, who was hiding behind Emo Shikong, and threw him out. Su Shihua was flung to the opposite fence by a terrifying force of inertia, and a part of the fence collapsed with a loud crack. He collapsed to the ground in a daze and spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at Emolien and Xiao Mu across from him with an increasingly horrified expression. Were these two monsters? He had already admitted defeat, so why did they still want to kill him? To put it bluntly, there wasn't any deep enmity between them. It was just him who was blind and came to find trouble with the little stoic. Now that he had been beaten to the point of vomiting blood and had been taught a lesson to the point where he had lost all face, why was he still unwilling to let him go? Why didn't this couple follow the routine? Emolien ordered coldly, "Kill him, little seven." This damned guy actually angered his Jojo to this extent, to the point where she was about to enter a demonic state again. Even death could not wipe out his crimes. The golden dragon immediately raised its head and roared angrily. A scorching red flame followed the soil under its feet and burned toward Su Shihua. Don't kill. Kill me, don't kill. Big brother, save me, big brother. Chapter 2956. Su Shihua's eyes were filled with horror. He got up on all fours and desperately ran out of the bamboo fence. Boom! The golden red flame was like a lion spitting fire. It moved forward rapidly and completely engulfed Su Shihua's body in an instant. The seventh yen circled in the air and roared angrily. Then, it turned into a golden pillar of light and sank into the crown prince's raised right hand. Ah hua! Mo Shikong finally reacted and hurriedly ran out of the bamboo fence. After a while, he came back with charcoal, whose head was crooked and whose body had been burned to a pulp. His eyes were filled with anger. He tightly grasped his brother's body and shouted angrily, "Crown Prince! If I want to kill him, who dares to stop me?" Prince Mo threw a cold look at Mo Shikong and said in a cold voice, "You can put this account on me. Your younger brother was killed by Gu Du. The person I want to kill, if I say he won't live past midnight tonight, he will never be able to see the morning light of tomorrow." Everyone's hearts shrank and they all took a step back. Especially those who came with the intention of watching the fun. At this moment, they really wanted to slap themselves. Who asked you to come and watch the fun? Who asked you to court death? Now the Crown Prince of Shenzhou and King Zheng were sworn brothers who were about to fight. Maybe the Crown Prince's anger had nowhere to vent and would be directed at them. Be a good King Zheng. Emolien threw down this sentence and directly reached out to pick up Arbor, who had his head lowered. Then he turned and walked out of the door. After a few steps, he suddenly stopped and turned his head to glare at Menta Ma and the others who were standing at the door. They were all shocked by his sharp gaze. "Cancel my leave." Okay, cancel my leave, cancel my leave. I'll cancel it right away." Menta Ma replied repeatedly and then wished he could slap himself. Was this the attitude of a mentor when talking to a student? He almost couldn't bear to look at this King fawning look. Holy Sun Mi Yen was so infuriated that one Buddha ascended to the heavens and two Buddhas left his body. Time and time again, he realized that his words were completely useless in front of Emolien and Arbor. This couple did not care about him at all. A little priest behind him said weakly, "Lord Holy Sun, actually, we should just watch the show. There's no need to interfere." The little priest bit the words into his own mouth and couldn't say it. Because Holy Sun Mi Yen turned around and punched his head ferociously as he roared, "Shut up!" The little priest cried silently in his heart. He felt that he was really too pitiful. He was clearly advising Lord Holy Sun not to make any more mistakes. Who would have thought that he would end up in such a miserable state? Holy Sun Mi Yen came and left quickly, mainly because he felt that he didn't have the face to continue being watched here. As for the Prince of Zhang, Mo Shikong, he lowered his head to look at his dying younger brother, who was charred black in his arms. His complexion was ghastly pale, and Emolien's parting words kept echoing in the depths of his mind. Be a good King Zheng. Be a good King Zheng. The threat in her words was so strong that it almost gushed out. Mo Shikong reached out and clenched his fists, and his breathing quickened. Chapter 29:57. The Crown Prince meant that if he continued to court death, he would think of a way to remove him from the position of King Zheng? Was he so much of an eyesore to the Crown Prince? Mo Shikong regained his senses and quickly ran towards the direction of the alchemy hall. Su Shihua was still alive. He could save him, he could definitely save him. If his parents knew that Hua Di had died in the royal school like this, he wondered if they would cry until a hole appeared in the sky. When Mo Shikong thought of this, he couldn't help but secretly shudder. If Hua Di really died like this, then King Zheng's residence would never have a day of peace. Let's not talk about how King Zheng, Mo Shikong, would go to the alchemy hall to beg the alchemists to save his brother. When Mo Lien carried his wife back to the room in the Donglin court, he kicked the door open and pulled his wife onto his lap. Without any explanation, he kissed her. He kissed the little girl until her somewhat dazed and unfocused eyes gradually became a little more focused. 2 red clouds quickly flew up on her small face. Only then did he slightly release the restraint, allowing her to take advantage of the situation to gasp for breath. When did they return to the court? Sir Jojo frowned and raised his little hand to block a certain someone's lips. What are you doing? Kissing my own wife. Isn't it a matter of course? Mo Lien's handsome face was taut as he said seriously. Sir Jojo glanced at him and snorted. He would never admit that he almost suffocated to death just now. Why did you come back? It was all his fault that he didn't accompany her to cancel her leave. Everything was not going well. I was looking for the shadow gods to ask something. Before Sir Chiao Chiao could open her mouth to ask, Crown Prince Mo, upholding his wife's words as the truth of the heavens, spilled the beans and confessed everything in full detail. The night before we went to Yunxia Peak, I arranged for them to do something at Xia Qi Garden. I left a trace of my soul and went to find Ming Yossi to fight that night. I asked them to cooperate with me. Yeah. In the end, he beat up Ming Yas so badly that he'll probably have to rest in bed for 2 to 3 days. You probably won't be seeing him for the next few days. Jojo stared at the man in front of him with his mouth agape. You beat him up? Yes. Mo Lien nodded and said with a look of disgust, It's a pity that this matter can only be carried out in secret. Even if we beat him up, we can't publicize it. Otherwise, not only will he suffer physical pain, his reputation will also be tarnished. The little fellow blinked his eyes and glanced at his exceptionally serious husband. He raised his little hand and touched his face. She suddenly reached out and hugged him, her little head swaying on his shoulder. Mo Lien, sometimes I wonder, what would I have done if I hadn't met you in this lifetime? She couldn't even think about it now. Just thinking about it made her heart ache. It felt like they had missed each other like this in their previous lives. Mo Lien was stunned. He hugged her tightly in his arms and slid his palm gently on her back. Even if it's 10,000 miles away, even if it's the 9 heavens, even if it's the Yellow Springs, it's still impossible to separate us. How is it possible that we haven't met? It's impossible. He hugged her soft body tightly and whispered in her ear. Impossible. Jojo murmured softly. She rested her head on his shoulder and remained silent for a long time. Jojo, can you promise me something? Mo Lien suddenly reached out and held her little face. He looked at her with a serious expression, his eyes shining brightly. Chapter 29:58. In the future, when you feel that the night is coming and you can't see any stars, just look at me, okay? Arbor wanted to laugh, but looking at his serious expression, she couldn't laugh at all. Even when I'm not by your side, you can look at the star I gave you. He carelessly touched the bottom of her neck and took out the little star from her collar, letting her hold it in her hand. Jojo. He sighed softly and rested his forehead on her sweaty little head. I don't know what kind of suffering and torture you've experienced in the past. Maybe I'm powerless to change it. But I want you to remember one thing. In the future, no matter how dark the night is or how long the road is, you'll have me by your side. No matter what you want to do, just do it. He raised his hand and touched her little face. I'll support you with all my strength. Arbor pursed her little lips, tilted her little head, and burrowed into his embrace. Emolien. Let's have a little Emolien. I think he'll be like you in the future. He'll be cute when he's young, sensible when he's older, and know how to dote on his mother. That's me. I think that's pretty good too. When the time comes, there'll be another person to dote on me. Sir Jojo thought so, but he didn't continue. After all, he was a jealous lotus. It was possible that he would even be jealous of his son. Prince Mo's hand, which was holding his little wife, instantly froze. He looked down. He saw his little beauty's little face under the flickering candlelight, swaying as if she wanted to say something. It was so captivating. It caused his originally pure mind to explode with a loud bang. It transformed into a colorful, enchanting, and gentle scenery. This was intolerable. He originally thought that since his little wife was still young, he would grit his teeth and endure it. When little Guazi grew up, he would swallow her in one gulp. He didn't expect his wife to ask for it herself. If he could still endure it, he wouldn't be human. Wife, whatever you say is right. Prince Mo carried his wife up and quickly moved to the side of the bed. Do you want to have a drink first? Arbor had the urge to laugh. Why did she feel that her husband was so nervous that even his hands and feet were a little choppy? Do you want a drink to boost your courage? Emolien. How could he say that? He looked at his wife pitifully. After a while he said, I'm not scared. Let's blow out the light. Emolienses, and the lights on the other end. Bang, bang, bang. A series of knocks sounded from outside. Crown Prince Mo cursed inwardly. Just as her fingers were about to button up her coat, she heard the pounding on the door become louder and louder. Bang 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 bang. Bang 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 bang. Arbor silently lowered her little head. Prince Mo glanced at his little wife and said speechlessly, Baby, don't think that I can't see you snickering just because you're lowering your head. Arbor looked up. The smile on her face had already widened. This caused Crown Prince Mo's hand, which was holding the buttons of his outer robe, to pause slightly. Jojo. The Crown Prince was in a good mood now. He suddenly felt that the guy outside who was pounding on the door wasn't so annoying anymore. He moved to her side, took her little hand with a smile, and kissed it hard. Chapter 29:59. Nothing could compare to his Jojo's smile, which made people feel comfortable. Crown Prince Mo beamed as he gazed at his wifey. He leaned close to her and whispered, How regretful, wifey. Looking at the time, we won't be able to make little Emolien today. The audacious Lord Chow Chow was actually blushing because of a few words from him. She suddenly felt that she should tease him back a little. But before she could do anything, bang! The people outside kicked the door open and rushed in one after another. Jojo, are you all right? Jojo. Qi Xian and the rest froze at the door. Looking at Crown Prince Mo and Sir Chow Chow, who were sitting in a row on the edge of the bed, their large hands clasped together as they gazed at each other, they felt like they had ruined someone else's happy occasion by foolishly barging in. Chow Mu suppressed the smile on her lips and did her best to maintain an expressionless stoic face. What could happen to me? We've lost face in the academy. Little Fatty exclaimed. We were thinking if we lost you as well. When the little fatty met Crown Prince Mo's gaze, he suddenly couldn't continue speaking. Cough cough. Actually, they were worried about Jojo. Jojo didn't look well just now and they were all worried to death. Now that they saw that the little girl's face was expressionless, but she was obviously much more energetic than before, they were relieved. Prince Mo was indeed worthy of his name. Luckily, he was here and managed to coax Miss Chow back. Duanmu Qing looked at the two of them deeply and smiled. Since Jojo is fine, let's gather at the plaza. Plaza. Something happened in the academy. Qi Xian wanted to walk up and hold Jojo's small arm, but seeing Prince Mo standing beside Jojo, she didn't dare to walk over. So Jojo jumped off the bed and held Molien's hand as they walked towards the door. What happened? The academy is embarrassed. Embarrassed? That poor Qin Xiu is missing. His Highness Ming Bao from Ming Province is also missing. Everyone talked as they walked towards the plaza. When they arrived, they realized that the plaza was already surrounded by a large group of people. When Principal Yun and a group of teachers arrived, everyone silently shut their mouths and looked up at Principal Yun and his group walking up the stairs. The principal frowned deeply and looked at the students. He said loudly, "I believe everyone knows what happened in the academy. Just now, the academy sent people to search the inner city but didn't find any traces of the two. I regret to inform you that student Qin Xiu and Ming Bao should have been abducted by unknown people." The academy square immediately went into an uproar. Everyone was whispering to each other, and they couldn't stop themselves from getting excited. "Principal, did someone sneak into our academy and abduct our students?" The hothead who spoke asked the question on everyone's mind. If someone was really able to sneak into the royal school and abduct them, then this enemy shouldn't be an ordinary person. His or her cultivation should be on par with Principal Yun's. Principal Yun looked at the student who asked the question and shook his head. What we can confirm now is that the two students got lost in the inner city. Chapter 2960. Now, the Academy has issued an emergency level 4 mission. We're calling for everyone to go out and search for them. Those who can find their two classmates in 3 days will be able to go to the mission center to collect the mission points. A burly man could not help but laugh when he heard this. We're losing people from the Divine Continent and the Underworld region. Don't tell me they'll all be found by us from the Zhongzhou? The Crown Prince of the Zhongzhou, Rong Li, could not help but frown as he glared at Ba Shu. This Ba Shu was loyal enough, but sometimes he seemed a little stupid. At this time, it was best not to speak, but he had to open his mouth to provoke the students from the Divine Continent and the Underworld region. As expected, Ba Shu's words immediately led to a war of words. Seeing that things were not going well, Principal Yun immediately raised his hands and gestured for everyone to keep quiet. Everyone quietly quieted down and focused their attention on Principal Yun. This emergency mission requires everyone to work together to complete it. After all, we've already sent so many people out, but in the inner city, it was like looking for a needle in a haystack. We found nothing. The purpose of this mission is to motivate all the students from the 3 continents to take the initiative and participate. We hope that you can take this mission seriously. After all, since you've entered the academy, your status is only that of a student. There's no distinction between rich and poor. Today, you may be able to ignore your classmates going missing, or even losing their lives, but you don't know when this kind of tragedy will befall you. If you extend a helping hand to others today, you'll receive help from others in the future. I hope you understand. Yes. The group of students shouted in unison. Even if they were not going for the mission points, they could not let others step on the heads of the royal school students and behave atrociously. Qin cultivator student went to the inner city to buy zither strings. Ming Bao seemed to be going to the inner city to buy something too. Both of them went missing on the same day. Could they have been kidnapped by the same person? The students started to discuss enthusiastically as they discussed forming teams to search for the 2 students in the inner city. Qi Xianxian glanced at Aba. "Jojo, are we going?" She knew that Jojo had never been on good terms with the Qin family. As for that Ming Bao, he did not have much contact with him either. However, since they had the same surname as Dark Yas, they were most likely from the same family. Aba considered for a moment, then nodded and said, "Since it's a mission from the academy, then we'll take it and walk around the inner city." They were just doing their best. After all, the inner city was so big. One more patrol team wouldn't make much of a difference. Even if she didn't get along with the people from the Qin estate, there was nothing wrong with the academy assigning her a mission. Moreover, she had briefly interacted with that 5th young Master Qin in the medical field, so she knew that this person was very fussy and didn't want to have too much personal contact with him. However, this was only a mission. Since all the students had accepted the challenge, their Seekong Planet battle team wouldn't do that special treatment and would just accept the challenge. As for whether or not he could find it, that was another matter altogether. Qi Xianxian, on the other hand, was quite happy. She had accepted a mission and was going to take a stroll around the inner city. Who knows, maybe they would be lucky enough to meet these two students and complete a level 4 mission. How great would that be? Chapter 2961. How could Arbor know that the little lass was harboring this kind of hoping to get lucky mentality? After accepting the mission, they followed the large group of students and walked out of the academy. It was already dusk, and the oncoming wind was neither too fast nor too slow. Although it was a bit chilly, it wasn't bone-piercing cold. After all, they were about to enter April, and the season of blooming flowers was about to arrive. Arbor walked next to Emolienne and felt the warmth in his palm as he held her hand. Emolienne's physique was of the fire attribute, and she herself possessed a sacred fire. His hand was dry and warm all year round, so she especially liked it. Unlike her legs were always a bit cold, and when she was nervous, her palms would turn cold and damp, making her feel uncomfortable. Emolienne reached out to pinch the little fellow's soft little face. "Chow Chow, how about we split into 3 teams to search the city since there are about 10 of us?" Right, 3 to 4 people in a team. We have to move faster, and we should be able to search the inner city before nightfall." Qi Xianxian quickly nodded and said. Arbor glanced at the little lass and silently twitched his mouth. Xianxian shouldn't be having some strange thoughts, such as, perhaps our team can complete this level 4 mission, or, in terms of luck, I only believe in my JoJo, and so on. The little stoic opened her mouth. "Xianxian, we're just out for a routine stroll." She didn't need to be so proactive. In any case, there were plenty of proactive people. There were at least several hundred people who wanted to save 5th young Master Qin from this abyss of suffering, one after the other. After all, the benefits of being on good terms with the Qin estate were innumerable. Qi Xianxian quickly said, "Jojo, don't doubt luck. I keep feeling that we'll run into each other." "Where did you get this absurd confidence from?" Arbor cast her a speechless glance, then didn't bother to continue speaking. Qi Xianxian arranged for the teams to be split into 3 teams, purposely leaving Prince Mo and Arbor in one team. After receiving Crown Prince Mo's admiring gaze, she laughed heartily and ran off with her teammates. Arbor couldn't help but shake his head in amusement. He turned to Emolienne and said, "Let's find a tea house and sit down." Whether or not he could find the zither cultivator and the underworld leopard was not that important to Arbor. In any case, if they were still in the inner city, they would definitely not be able to leave for the time being. After all, the dean had ordered the city to be sealed the moment the 2 students were confirmed to be missing. Right now, not to mention a person, even a fly would not be able to fly out of Wind Thunder City. Oh no, oh no! A cannibalistic barrier appeared at the end of West Street again and swallowed the children. A loud voice exploded in their ears. They saw that the passers-by and the uncles and aunties who had set up their stalls all raised their carrying poles and rushed towards this person with sticks in their hands. "What? Where is it? Where is it? Take us there. Everyone, be careful. This man-eating enchantment was very fierce. We've already gone to Ethereal Peak to ask Principal Yun for help. As long as Principal Yun is willing to descend the mountain, he will definitely be able to get rid of this vile creature." Right, there must be a demon causing mischief. It can't be a ghost, right? No matter who it is, in any case, we must eradicate it completely this time. Master Silver, Little 4 is nearby. Chocho's sudden words made Arbor's brows twitch uncontrollably. What man-eating enchantment? It couldn't have been that little rascal's doing, right? Today ended at 10:00 p.m. Fragmented Dreams. Chapter 2962. Sir Jojo hurriedly tugged at her husband's hand. "Lien, let's also go over and take a look." Emolienne nodded and looked at her in confusion. "What is it?" Seeing the little fellow's serious expression, It seemed like something rather important had happened. Everything was fine just now. To put it bluntly, the disappearance of that fellow hell leopard and fifth Chin didn't have much to do with them. The little girl said expressionlessly, "Previously, I found Chochio's tree seed fragment little 4 in the heaven-level testing steel on Main Academy Street." Auber took a deep breath. It ran away. Later, because there were too many things to do, she didn't remember to go look for this little fellow. She didn't expect it to stir up trouble in the inner city. It really deserved a beating. Emolien couldn't help but laugh. The cannibalistic inner world that those city residents were talking about just now? It should be its doing. The little girl nodded her little head resentfully. This little fellow was seriously too mischievous. The two hurried in the direction of West Main Street as they spoke. There were already quite a few people standing there. Older brothers and uncles carrying hoes followed the crowd as they searched for the missing child. But how could a few dozen trifling ordinary people detect something like a barrier? When Auber arrived at West Main Street, she also sensed a trace of familiar energy fluctuation. Knowing that it was the fragment little 4 playing tricks, she hurriedly tugged at Molien's hand and pulled him into a detour into an alley. At this time, West Main Street had already attracted a large number of people. Many Royal Academy students also hurried over when they heard that something had happened here. Auber didn't want to attract attention. This little 4 was so mischievous, so she had to take this little fellow away before anyone discovered it. The two entered the back alley and didn't sense anything special at first. But after walking for a short while, they both stopped and looked at each other. Although the surroundings don't seem to have changed, it's very obvious that we've already unknowingly walked into a barrier, Emolien said with a smile. Can't Chochio sense the movement trajectory of fragments? Summon it out and lead the way. Chao Mu nodded and summoned Chochio. As soon as the little tray ant came out, it somersaulted twice and climbed onto Chao Mu's shoulder before plopping down on its butt. It panted as it said, "Master, this matter is a bit difficult to handle." "What is it?" "This fourth child must have developed some intelligence and has its own thoughts." The little tray ant drooped its black bean-like eyes in distress. It stretched out a branch and scratched its head in distress. What if it really doesn't want to return to its original position? The sapling glanced at the little Master Silver worriedly and muttered, "Chochio can only grow into a towering tree if we gather all the missing fragments." When it said this, Chochio looked up at the sky again and put on a sad but bright little tree face. Auber was speechless for a while. He raised his hand and stroked the leaves on its head. "It will come back. Hurry up and sense its location." Chochio lifted 2 leaves and pointed in front. Auber wanted to reach out and grab her husband's hand, but grabbed nothing. She couldn't help but be secretly alarmed. She turned her head and shouted, "Lien." Emolien was also annoyed at this time. He also wanted to grab his wifey's hand as he spoke, but didn't manage to do so. Only then did he realize that he had fallen into little 4's trap. Chapter 2963. Looking around, he realized that he was no longer in the dark alley. Instead, there were many tall and lush trees growing around him. Suddenly, one of the tree vines that was hanging behind him moved. It moved very quickly, like a dancing black snake. With 2 whooshing sounds, it wrapped itself around Emolien's arm. Emolien raised the Raven Moon sword in her hand. She hesitated for a moment before slashing down. Within the tree shadow enchantment that Little 4 had set up, if she destroyed it recklessly, it would definitely cause harm to Little 4. This tree seed fragment was a part of Little Ball. It would be bad if it was damaged, but if it wasn't, she wouldn't be able to leave for the time being. Emolien felt a headache coming on. Looking at the tree vines that were wantonly attacking her, she leapt and dodged. "Lien!" Sir Jojo quickly ran a few feet forward. His little face instantly darkened. "Little 4, come out." "Master, don't worry about the great Crown Prince. He will be fine." The great Crown Prince's martial prowess was no joke. If Little 4 insisted on seeking death, Little Ball secretly ridiculed in its heart. It could only light a candle for him. When spring came next year, it would burn some paper at his grave. Master, it's not far ahead. Chase. With Little Ball's howl, Arbor inexplicably increased its speed and rushed towards the direction it was pointing at. From afar, they could only see a towering tree standing in front of them. Under the tree, there was a large hollowed-out lounge chair with golden flowers. On it lay a fat baby wearing a big red doo-doo. 17 or 18 children, ranging in age from 5 to 8 years old, were eagerly surrounding the chubby baby, serving him tea and water as they called out, "Your Majesty." "Great King, have a banana." "Great King, drink some water. Don't choke." "Great King, are you hot? Do you want me to give you a fan or something?" As Arbor approached, he heard these children flattering the Great King. The corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. What was going on? She subconsciously glanced at the expressionless Chocho from the corner of her eye. No emotion could be seen in Chocho's two bean-like bright eyes. However, Arbor knew that Chocho's heart must be crumbling right now. Cough. Arbor pulled the little tray ant off his shoulder and put it on his arm. "Chocho, I didn't expect you to have such a dark heart. So you've always wanted to be the great king of the mountain. Raise a group of little brothers and sisters to serve you. No wonder you enslaved Little Water and Little Earth. It turns out that you are subconsciously a great king of mountains." Several leaves rushed up to block Arbor's little mouth. Chocho only felt that its small tree face was about to burst into flames. It was about to be angered to death by this brainless fat baby in front of it. What was wrong with Fragment Little 4? It created such a frightening barrier and kidnapped so many children from the city just to make these children its subordinates? Bandits! Bandits! Shameless! Chocho couldn't help but curse at this brainless fragment in its heart. "Hey! Why aren't you kneeling in front of this great king?" The fat baby suddenly straightened up and spoke in a childish voice. Arbor had an inexplicable urge to burst out laughing. Fortunately, she was used to her stoic face, so she restrained her laughter. Chapter 2964. Kneel. Meet this great king. The chubby baby coiled his two short legs that resembled lotus roots and looked at Arbor seriously. His gaze landed on the sapling Chocho's tan face. "You still dare to pull a long face in front of this great king? You, go up and pluck off the hair on his head." "Yes, great king." A wimpy child beside him immediately responded. He rolled up his sleeves and stomped up a few steps. Arbor's mouth twitched. She really didn't want to bully a baby. But the other person had already rolled up his sleeves to snatch Chocho from her arm. If she didn't do anything, wouldn't she be too cowardly? Arbor expressionlessly picked up that wimpy child and watched him kick his legs in the air like a fish that suddenly lost its water supply and found it hard to breathe. Then, he burst into tears with a wah. The little stoic's face instantly darkened, and her head swelled. The little fat child with the red doo-doo was infuriated, and he leaped down from the large recliner at once. His small, chubby feet were bare as he ran toward Chow Mu, smacking his lips. The sapling Chocho raised two leaves to cover its black beady eyes. It felt that the Fragment Little 4 in front of it was practically unbearable to look at. How could this guy be so stupid? He was actually butt naked. This child couldn't have been sealed inside the testing monolith for hundreds to thousands of years and turned stupid, right? "Woman, how dare you!" The chubby baby shouted as he looked up at Arbor with his arms akimbo. If this guy could grow a bit taller, perhaps he would be a bit more imposing. But now, Arbor rolled his eyes and directly flung out a vine from his sleeve. He grabbed that wimpy child and hung him up like a dumpling before dragging him in front of him. "Where did you take my Lien? Hurry and let him out." The chubby baby widened his round black eyes and stared pitifully at Arbor. He then turned around to look at Chocho and suddenly wailed, Big brother, save me, big brother." Chocho speechlessly raised its hand to cover its eyes. Arbor reached out and flicked its chubby head. "Shut up. I think you've become bold, even daring to kidnap people. Don't you know that other people's families will worry when you kidnap them to play? Arbor slapped its chubby paw twice in exasperation at its failure to meet his expectations. How are you going to clean this up now? Big brother, fragment number 4 said pitifully, can you ask this big sister to stop hitting me? Big. Call her master. Chow Moo and Cho roared at it one after another. Fragment number 4 lowered its head like a little quail. Before it could even open its mouth, it was already tearing up. Little mistress, what do you think we should do? Big brother, can you fuse me in later? Get to the point. Cho roared at it with great vigor. I don't have any ill intentions towards them, fragment number 4 stuttered. Fragment number 4 stuttered. Tears fell from his eyes as he howled miserably. I am madam. I really want to find someone to play with me for a while. I didn't harm them. I even gave them good food and drinks. But you still can't kidnap them, Arbor glared at it in annoyance. Before he could continue lecturing it, he frowned slightly. Chapter 2965. In the next instant, the little monk who was making a fuss was released. Once the little baldy was released, he ran to the little fat boy with the red undergarment and said, Amit Ba. He stretched out his white and tender hands and rubbed fragment little 4's head. Benefactor, this little monk understands you very well. Arbor was speechless. Actually, it's because you're too lonely that you did such a foolish thing. The little fat boy with the red undergarment on his but sobbed and suddenly stopped crying. He raised his head and looked at the little monk who had a compassionate expression and was enveloped in Buddhist light. Little master. The little fat boy cried loudly and threw himself into the little monk's arms. The little monk sighed and said, The world is empty and bitter, and everything is impermanent. The past is gone, and people must always look to the future. Little benefactor, don't be too sad. Arbor pressed his aching head and carried the little monk over and placed him under the tree. He then carried the little fat boy with the red undergarment over and placed him under the tree as well. I beg of you, don't cry. Arbor pulled Cho from his arm and placed him on the ground. He stared at fragment number 4 with a serious expression. Little 4, you knew who we were the moment you came out from the testing monument, right? Fragment little 4 shivered and nodded his head timidly. The little brats around them were not going to let it go. They kept calling him Great King, and wanted to rebel and attack Sir Jojo. What a joke! How could they let their great king lower his head and admit defeat in front of a girl? They had to fight. Arbor was speechless as he looked at the little brats who were swarming towards him. He couldn't hit them and couldn't be bothered to scold them. He simply controlled the dosage and sprinkled the sleeping powder on them. Dong 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 dong. The little brats fell in a circle and the world finally quieted down. Arbor heaved a sigh of relief from the bottom of his heart. Fragment little 4 looked at his little brothers nervously, then looked up at the little girl bitterly. Master Silver, what did you do to them? Miss Chow had a good sense of propriety. The dosage of the sleeping powder was very light. At most, it would only make the children sleep for 15 minutes. It would not have any effect on their bodies. Therefore, if she wanted to do something, she had to do it within these 15 minutes. Otherwise, her head would explode again. Little 4, you must listen to me now. Immediately return to Paradise Planet with Cho. Seeing that the chubby kid was about to cry again, Arbor pinched his chubby cheeks. No matter what you do, I will respect your decision. Since you've already gained sentience, you should have your own thoughts. But you have to think carefully. Arbor patted him on the head. If you don't return to your original body, you'll always be like this. You'll never grow up again. Without this fragment, little 4 was only missing a small part to him. His growth would be slower in the future. But this seed fragment, it would forever remain in the form of a child. It would be impossible for it to grow for thousands of years. Fragment little 4 sobbed and said pitifully, I didn't think that I won't come back. I just wanna play for a while more. After being accidentally sealed in the test monument in the middle of nowhere, Little Four had always wanted to come out. Chapter 2966. Once it escaped, its little mentality was that it didn't want to be fused with Big Brother so quickly. He really wanted to chase back the hundreds of years of time that had been sealed, and then find someone to play with it for a few days. Woo-woo, it was that simple. Abba picked him up and flicked his little head. All right, Chocho didn't say that it was going to fuse with you immediately. As for you, you can play for as long as you want, but you can't kidnap people anymore in the future. If you want to play with them, then work hard to become their little friends, instead of using the methods of bandits to kidnap them. The little chubby child nodded his little head as if he understood. Where's my Lien? The little fellow's face was stiff as he asked without batting an eyelid. The little chubby child weakly pointed at his fingers. He's so bad, he almost chopped me to death. If this man hadn't stopped at the last moment, it would probably have been injured and unable to continue maintaining the barrier in front of it. Auber and the little chubby child looked at each other. So, I threw him out before. Fragment Little Four said immediately. Threw him out of my bounded domain. Out far away. Out far away, at least he wouldn't be able to find him so quickly. What a scary guy. He now understood a little why that man suddenly stopped and didn't try to destroy his barrier. It must be because that man suddenly remembered that he and Big Brother were of the same bloodline. If he hurt him, he would hurt Big Brother, which would then affect his own little master. That terrifying man had only let him go for the sake of his little mistress. Auber really wanted to smack this little fellow's butt, but he gritted his teeth and held it in. At the side, Chocho didn't care so much and directly pulled out a vine and smacked the little chubby child's butt. He snorted and said, "You're not too stupid. You guessed correctly. Crown Prince didn't attack you for Master's sake. Otherwise, with your small body, do you think you can withstand 3 moves from others? Hurry and return to Paradise Planet with me, don't cause trouble for Master anymore. Master still has to clean up this mess for you. You're really worrying people to death. After a few hundred years, you've grown old but not wise. Why are you so foolish?" The sapling activated its nagging mode and stretched out a branch to grab Fragment Little Four, pulling him back to Paradise Planet. Another branch stretched out and wrapped around the little monk's waist without warning, causing the little monk's mumbling of "this little monk can walk on his own" to disappear into the air. Auber pressed his small head with a headache and glanced at the bear cubs lying on the ground. With a wave of his hand, he led the group of children out of the barrier and back into the alley. She flicked a pebble from her fingertips and it landed on the wall with a "pa" sound. Then she disappeared without a trace. Very quickly, the alley was filled with students from the royal school. The leader of the group was Wu Huanxiu, the beautiful princess. She saw a dozen children lying in the alley and couldn't help but cry out in surprise, "It's the children. Come and see. Is he your child?" His voice was like a candle that had been lit, instantly attracting all the citizens in the city. Meanwhile, the little stoic had already gone far away. Following the sapling's guidance, she chased in the direction of Emolien's aura. Just as she came out from behind the alley, she narrowly bumped into a coarse woman with a fierce-looking face. "I'm going to sleep, it's too late." Chapter 2967. The woman scowled and was about to curse, but when she looked up and saw her, it was as if she had suddenly seen a ghost. She hastily lowered her head and shrunk her neck as she walked towards the side door. When the woman stealthily walked to the door and closed it, she didn't forget to sneak a glance at Auber. She was almost scared out of her wits by what she saw. She saw that Miss Chow really was like a ghost as she stood in front of the side door. The woman's heart almost stopped from fright when she met Chow Mu's cold and desolate eyes through the door crack that wasn't very wide. Bang! The woman forcefully closed the door with both hands and hastily fastened the latch. Afterwards, she panted heavily for air and subconsciously raised a sleeve to wipe the cold sweat on her forehead before slowly turning around. She then widened her eyes in horror as she looked at Abba, who was standing in front of her and staring at her expressionlessly. Bang! The woman's legs turned to jelly from fright, and she leaned against the door, almost collapsing on the ground. Barely propping herself up, the woman trembled as she leaned against the door. She looked in horror at the little stoic in front of her and stammered, Miss, trespassing into other people's homes, what are you doing? You know me? The woman hurriedly shook her head like a rattledrum. You don't know me, but you look like you've seen a ghost? Abba's eyes revealed this meaning, but he didn't feel like speaking. However, the woman clearly wasn't a smart person like Emolien or Duan Yu. She simply couldn't understand the little girl's gaze. She shuddered as she moved closer to the door. She stammered, Since you, miss, if there's nothing else, please leave first. Abba glanced at her suspiciously. He looked at her several times until the woman's heart was about to leap out of her chest. Humph! The little girl pursed her lips in boredom and turned around to pass through the inner wall. This time, the woman finally saw clearly. No wonder this little girl was like a ghost and silently stood behind her. It turned out that she had passed through the estate's wall. Startled, the woman hurriedly got up and ran towards the inner court. Madam. The middle-aged woman ran to the entrance of the inner courtyard and stood there, repeatedly calling inside. The door to the side room was pushed open with a creak, and a pretty maid with a round face walked out from inside. She glared at the biddy and said impatiently, Why are you shouting outside the door? Don't you know that Madam is busy? This old servant has something important to report to Madam. I'll have to trouble Miss Kai Hui to inform them. The round-faced Pan girl, Kai Hui, couldn't help but sneer when she heard this. If you have something to say, just say it to me. Madam doesn't have so much free time to see a doorkeeper like you. What's with the noise? A woman with a snow-white complexion and slender fingers walked out of the house. Beside her was a muscular man with a bare upper body. The biddy blushed slightly, and she promptly knelt down and saluted, Greetings, madam. This old servant has something important to report to madam. This old servant saw the Crown Princess just now. The originally indifferent madam of the State Security Bureau was abruptly startled, and her entire body tensed up reflexively. What did you say? Who did you see? Chapter 2968. The Crown Princess, the old woman hurriedly said. Then she glanced at Madame Gowan fawningly and said with a grin, But don't worry, madam. This old servant has already sent that little Crown Princess away. How did you send her away? Madame Gowan sized her up suspiciously. The stoic-faced Crown Princess wasn't that easy to send away. Madame Gowan vigilantly had the man beside her use his spiritual perception to search the surroundings. After confirming that there were no strangers lurking nearby, she sighed in relief. You did very well. Madame Gowan nodded. Kai Hui, give her 5 spirit coins as a tip. Yes. The old maidservant took the reward and left while thanking her profusely. She even thought to herself, Fortunately, I saw that portrait in Madame's court before. That's how I recognized this stoic-faced young crown prince consort at a glance. Speaking of which, she had only caught a glimpse of her from afar. At that time, Madame was throwing iron darts in the small court, and there was a portrait hanging on the target. Later on, she secretly asked the old woman in the same area and learned who the portrait was. Fortunately, she had a good memory. If she continued to tangle with the little stoic crown princess, who knew what would happen in the future? Perhaps it would really arouse the suspicion of this stoic-faced crown princess, and she would come in to investigate regardless. If she ruined Madame's plans because of her, Madame definitely wouldn't easily forgive her. That old woman cracked a smile and continuously tossed a spirit coin in her hand as she left with a chuckle. However, she didn't know that not long after she left, a person appeared on the treetop. Auber knitted his small brows tightly and raised his hand to scratch his small head. In truth, She originally didn't want to meddle in this matter, but she didn't expect. Xuanxuan's crow's beak really hit the nail on the head. She had worn out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it without any effort. Judging from Madame Gowen's sneaky behavior, she definitely didn't do anything good. Perhaps the Qin family's fifth young master and Ming Bao were abducted by this Madame Gowen. No one knew when she came to the Wind Thunder City. Her whereabouts were quite strange. She actually managed to hide from the Crown Prince's spies outside the Wind Thunder City. Aber didn't know that the Madam of the National Security Agency had deliberately disguised herself before setting off for the Wind Thunder City. She kept a very low profile along the way and didn't cause any commotion. The carriage she used was also very simple. She didn't even use the main entrance when she left the imperial capital. If it weren't for the old woman's guilty conscience and dodging after seeing the arbor, she wouldn't have aroused Miss Chow's suspicion. Speaking of which, it was quite strange. Why did this Madam of the National Security Agency come to the Wind Thunder City instead of being a proper wife in the imperial capital? Did she catch fifth young Master Qin on the spur of the moment, or did she come here specially? This small courtyard was not very big, so Aber only casually walked around the courtyard and found the fifth young master tied to the bed in a small room. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Mr. Jojo wouldn't have known that the Madam of the National Security Agency had such a weird hobby. She liked to tie men up on the bed. What kind of hobby was this? Aber glanced through the window and saw that the fifth young master's expression seemed to be in extreme pain. It was obvious that he had been drugged. Miss Chow blinked and associated it with the previous incident where she treated the fifth young master. Could it be that the filthy aphrodisiac powder was also administered by this talented Madam of the National Security Agency? Chapter 2969. Sir Jojo floated in through the window and silently arrived beside the large bed. Looking at Qin Xiu's pained appearance for a long while, he seemed to have thought of something and raised his head slightly. He felt a light bulb flash through his mind. Oh! No wonder Madame Gua of the Goan Madam called out young Sir Qin on the spot at the palace banquet last time when she gave her a beautiful dream. As it turned out, she was thinking of this fifth young Sir Qin back then? That wasn't right either. The little girl tilted her head and associated it with Madame Gua of the Goan Madam's disgraceful behavior back then. It seemed like she was doing something with several Qin young Sir Qin, not just fooling around with this fifth young Sir Qin in the fantasy realm. This Madame Gua of the Goan Madam wasn't afraid of dying from a loss of blood. When the little stoic thought of this, she couldn't resist pursing her lips in disdain. Fifth young Sir Qin abruptly opened his eyes, which were brimming with bloodlust and hatred. When his gaze landed on the little stoic, he was instantly dumbfounded. He thought his eyes were playing tricks on him, so he opened his eyes with all his might. When he discovered that expressionless stoic face was still standing at the head of her bed and looking at him, he couldn't resist saying hoarsely, save me, save me. 1,000,000 spirit coins and a stalk of tearless grass." The little stoic didn't have any extra expression on her face, and her tone was indifferent, as if she was making a deal with him. Fifth young Sir Qin was slightly taken aback, and then he nodded with all his might with reddened eyes. Aber replied with an "oh," before reaching out to pull him up from the bed. The dagger in her palm directly chopped off several ropes binding him. Her movements were extremely rough, without the slightest regard for whether a person without any cultivation could withstand her strength. Qin Xiu couldn't describe his feelings. He actually knew from the start that this stoic face was a heartless and cold-blooded person. Back then, the reason why she saved him was because Physician Chong repeatedly begged her and even offered a large sum of money. Aber lowered her head to glance at this fifth young sir before swaggering outside while carrying him. "You were poisoned with 8 types of X drugs last time. Was it the Ministry of the Goans doing?" Fifth young Sir Qin's expression was rather indignant. He was a grown man, yet he was being held in her hands like a little chick. Not to mention that he couldn't get over his embarrassment, he couldn't bear it mentally either. Moreover, her extremely puzzled expression was a little glaring. He didn't believe that Ling Gu wouldn't have told her the truth when she saved him in Langfang previously. How could he have never mentioned the name of the Madam of the National Security Agency? It was obvious that she had forgotten. Or perhaps it should be said that she didn't take the matter of saving him, Fifth Chin, to heart at all. After she was done, she completely forgot about him. Seeing that he pursed his lips and didn't speak, Arba didn't bother to ask any more. Anyway, her relationship with the Chin family was just like that. The Chin family's fifth young master was a good-for-nothing. If he had the ability, he might be as bad as his second brother. Arba felt annoyed as he carried him. When he exited the room, he coincidentally bumped into Madam of the National Security Agency. Madam Goen was so nervous that her whole body trembled. She subconsciously hid behind the strong man beside him. Subsequently, she felt that her cowardice was truly a bit outrageous. Why are you here?" Madam Goen's voice resounded in the small courtyard. "You're trespassing on private property." Arba sneered at her. "If you're unconvinced, come fight me." Madam Goen instantly retreated several steps. Chapter 2970 F*CK 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 F*CK. Madam Goen repeatedly cursed in her heart. However, when she recalled that damnable ugliness at the palace banquet last time, which caused her to not dare to leave the house for more than half a month, she inexplicably felt apprehensive when she saw Arba now. This lass was truly sinister, so she really didn't dare to confront her directly again. "Arba, I am warning you." Madam Goen inwardly shuddered and couldn't resist scolding. "You, immediately put him down. Let's go our separate ways. Hurry and leave. I'll treat it as if I never saw you. I'll." Before Madam Goen could finish her sentence, she was startled by Arba, who suddenly flashed forward and hastily retreated several steps. "How can you be so shameless?" Arba expressionlessly looked at her and said, "Fifth young Sir Chin doesn't seem to like you, so why do you keep pestering him?" Madam Goen was so angry that her face flushed red, and she couldn't resist roaring, "What the hell do you know? He's already mine now. Fifth young Sir is just shy by nature and isn't good at expressing himself." Arba instantly loosened his grip, and Fifth young Sir felt like he was a pile of trash that the little girl threw away. When she peeked at him, it was as if she was looking at a pile of dirt, and she even hastily took out a small white handkerchief from her pocket to wipe her hands. Humiliation and anger instantly flashed past Fifth young Sir's eyes, and he exerted all his strength to move his limp limbs, but he felt powerless all over. Don't listen to her nonsense." Fifth young Sir couldn't help but panic when he saw the little girl's cold expression and how she was about to leave. He reached out to grab a ribbon on her skirt and struggled with all his might. She's talking nonsense. I don't know what the hell you two are doing." The little girl looked impatient and disinclined to care. "You guys settle it yourselves." She still had to hurry and find her Lien, so how could she have the leisure to fool around with this bunch of idlers? "Why you can't, cough, cough. I was caught by her. She caught me. Why you clearly know." Fifth young Master Chin was so infuriated that his entire body was trembling. He was infuriated at this young lady's aloofness and decisiveness, and he was also infuriated that he didn't have any cultivation and was just a piece of trash. He was like a fish on a chopping block, waiting to be slaughtered. Wah! He was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood, which formed a dark red puddle on the ground. The little stoic halted her steps and lowered her head to glance at him. When she saw that this person was truly so infuriated that his entire body was trembling, she couldn't help but pace back and forth in irritation. In the end, she still felt apologetic, so she bounced back and picked up the fifth young master again. The little stoic expressionlessly shouted at Madame Gua, "Scram!" Madame Goen was furious and couldn't help but curse, "Stoic face, do you really think I'm afraid of you? Men!" As soon as Madame Goen gave the order, 4 or 5 people who looked like secret guards immediately flew behind her. Arba glanced at her and snorted. "You think you can stop me with just a few small fries? Aren't you too naive?" What big words! Madame Gowan sneered coldly. Take him down. Be careful of her poison. Alba tossed fifth young Sir Cheen to the side again and summoned that black ferule from his conscious. Several small blue flames whizzed in the direction of the secret gods. The current update time is in the middle of the night. So you guys can come and watch during the day. I'm too sleepy, so I'll sleep first. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.